the approach. You mentioned adversity. Look, imagine what would have happened if D'Angelo Russell began his career with the Nets. I keep thinking about that and asking it out loud because this is a guy who had 34 tonight against the Celtics, and I know we'll talk most of the night about what it means for the Celtics and where they're at. But Zeke, as somebody who's so in tune, which is why you were there yesterday, with the human element and nature of leadership and play, how proud are you watching the way he's worked and developed since everything that went down in L.A.?
Extremely proud of him. And I remember when it went down, I got a call from Wojo, and he said to me that, hey, you know, he's known Russell and the family for a while, and that Russell not only is a good player, but he's a good human being, and it's just going to take him some time to really get used to the NBA. And Wojo was right. I mean, because what we're seeing now in Brooklyn, by him being close to home, being close around family and friends, you know, the person and the man that he wanted to be and aspired to be, and also the player that he's maturing into, we're definitely seeing on display now in Brooklyn.
And I'd like to see him stay there. It would be nice in the future. The Celtics, they don't want to stay here. They want to kind of get back to winning ways. On their side, the news not as good in the loss.
We just got to have each other's back at the end of the day. We can't make comments. We can't point fingers. We just got to continue to empower each other and have each other's back. If we don't, start pointing fingers, everybody's going to go into their own little shell. We got to continue to play basketball. It starts from the top to the bottom, not from the bottom to the top, but from the top to the bottom. So we got to continue to empower each other and make the best of this.
Let's talk coaching, because I want to go there, and there's a lot of things here, but sitting next to you, what I want to know, and if I'm the fan, we know Brad Stevens is a great coach. And I think from X's and O's and out of bounds, the way he deals with people, all in between. But how much is this the toughest test of a coach when you go through something like that with different egos of different ages, and I see you smiling, and you probably made it tough on a certain coach yourself as a group, right?
Not me.
Right? How much is this the most difficult test for Brad Stevens yet?
It's extremely difficult because, A, he has a roster of 12 that can all contribute and play. And everyone believes that they are better than the player who is playing in front of them. And when they get the opportunity in the minutes to play in front of the player that's playing in front of them, the guy proves it. So you got a roster now where everybody is kind of equal, and nobody has really, you know, jumped up and said, I'm the guy in this position. So they're all interchangeable. And when everybody's interchangeable, then it comes down to, okay, what type of chemistry do you have? And they don't have a talent problem right now. They have a chemistry problem. And the chemistry problem comes from that equality in the locker room. You got to have some guys who are the alphas. I'm first, you're second, and he's third. And
now there's no third. I know you were talking about first and second.
But the guy who's first, right, he's got to be good enough so the guy who's second can never think that he's better than number one.
The Philly problem with Embiid, in my opinion,
and
right?
Yeah, so
like
this
it being the alpha and where everyone else stands.
So this is what they're going through now. Can they manage that? Yes. Where the coach comes in, the coach has got to find 8 to 9 guys that he's going to say, these are my guys, this is who I'm going to win with, and the other 3 or 4, you know, you guys aren't going to play that much. But these are my guys.
How's that conversation go? That's not fun.
And this is where the Hall of Fame coaches, they come into the locker room and they have a way of making you feel good about being a 10th, 11th, 12th man.
I want to follow on that because as Zeke talks, and I think if you think about it, look at units. Think about the culture of Greg Popovich and what we've seen after the injuries. Yeah. Look at what Kenny Atkinson's done with Brooklyn, even when they lost games the last couple of years, in every game. Think about Spo in Miami all these years and look at, I don't want to say lack of talent, but top star talent at times. Kyrie is one of the greatest from ball handlers, one-on-one players, creativity that we've ever seen. But how much now is this his biggest test? No LeBron, you wanted this leadership role to find a way to uplift, not put down. And I know he said that's not what he meant to do. Yeah. But how difficult is that, and a new challenge for him?
Well,
right?
it's difficult, and it is a new challenge, and this is what he asked for. This is what he learned in Cleveland, what he's matured into, and now no one again questions his play.
No.
As we're watching the play here develop, you know what the leader is supposed to do in this situation as the ball goes to Tatum. Tatum knocks the shot down or doesn't make the shot. But you see Kyrie, body language, non-verbal communication.
Hands up in the air.
Is extremely important from the leadership standpoint. So as the leader, how do you handle that situation? You don't handle that situation in front of 20,000 people, in front of the coaches, in front of everyone, even though, you know, you may be frustrated, even though it may have been a broken play and you were supposed to get it or what have you. At that point in time, as the leader, you got to have enough composure, enough understanding, and enough compassion for your teammate, again, who has made a mistake, potentially, not to embarrass him or further compound the mistake by, you know, bringing it to the public's attention.
Yeah, I always say this because pitchers in baseball are this way. You got an error behind you, you got to go get the next guy and ask for the ball and say, I got you. And we should point out, even though it's another sport, because I think this is really important from what you're saying, and I know this is meaningful to you. For those who didn't see, when Alshon Jeffrey dropped that ball yesterday.
Yeah.
Peterson went over to him, consoled him, and then Nick Foles, they asked Jeffrey what he said. He said, without you, I wouldn't have a Super Bowl ring. I love you.
Yeah.
And that is leadership, right?
So I learned that type of leadership that you just explained in compassion by watching Georgetown play North Carolina, and Coach Thompson goes up and I think he hugs Fred Brown, who made the turnover at the end of the game to James Worthy, and Georgetown could have won a national championship, and I saw John Thompson walk up to Fred Brown and just hug him, right? To me, as a young player, you know, coming up, that showed me, okay, this is how you respond in those tough situations to your teammate or to someone who's you coaching, because that person is at their lowest, and your job is still to uplift and inspire and get that person through that tough moment.
Don't always see it. JR is still waiting for his hug from the finals last year. We've got a lot to get to. Brothers don't shake hands. They got a hug. It's game time. More coming up. Presented by Kia.
Tonight on NBA TV, Tony Parker makes his first return to San Antonio as a member of the Charlotte Hornets. During the 17 years he spent with the Spurs, he became a 6-time All-Star, 4-time champion. He still holds the franchise record for total number of assists with more than 6,800. So for more on Tony's likely Hall of Fame career and his return to San Antonio, we welcome in Jabari Young, the Spurs beat writer for The Athletic. First and foremost, first thought, your expectation for Tony's return?
It ain't going to be like Kawhi Leonard's, I'll tell you that. You know, it's not going to be no booing. You know, listen, I remember, you know, when I first started covering this team, you know, the love-hate relationship, or, you know, the love-disappointment relationship sometimes between the Spurs and Tony Parker was always up and down. You know, Manu and Tim Duncan, they were beloved here. And then Tony, it was just up and down. But I think now that he's gone, fans, you know, you look back on it and say, man, we really appreciated everything he gave us. We know sometimes we didn't like it, or, you know, we didn't say, hey, Tony, be better on defense or be better here. But listen, you cannot argue the results that Tony Parker had. I mean, finals, if they would not have as many championships had it not been for Tony Parker. And the one thing I always said when he was here, he was an extension of Greg Popovich on that floor, and that's why Greg Popovich thinks so highly of Tony Parker. But if it was one member of the Big Three who I can always envision to have finished his career elsewhere, is Tony Parker. And then tonight, obviously, is all coming full circle. So it's going to be a very emotional night for him, but I think that he'll feel that love once he's introduced for the starting lineup, or not in the starting lineup, but when he's introduced into the game, and then they'll do the video tribute. So it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, will you tell us a little bit more about what the team has planned for his return?
Well, they're going to, you know, have a tribute for him, I believe, after the national anthem. And, you know, obviously that's where you're going to see it all, the blood, the sweat, the tears, everything that he gave this organization. You know, remember the story, Tony Parker wasn't even supposed to be a Spur. When Greg Popovich first saw him, he cut him. He didn't think he had it in him. So, you know, Tony got back into that tryout in that workout before the draft, and that's when he sold Greg Popovich, and then look at his first season, he got tossed right in the starting lineup. So it's one of those relationships where you look back on and you say, man, that was really, really special now that it's all said and done. But Tony, he still lives here. His family still lives here, his wife and kids. So that at the end of the day, when it comes time to retire, he's going to be right back here in San Antonio, and it ain't going to be no time until that jersey is hanging up in the rafters.
What stands out to you, though, about that relationship between coach and player, as we've heard Pop reflect on that relationship in these last couple of days?
Well, what stood out is that, they always had that type of father-son relationship. Obviously Tony has his real dad. His real dad is here tonight. I just got finished talking to him. But, when it comes down to, point guards and head coaches, the point guard and the head coach should always be on the same page because, again, the point guard is the extension of the head coach, on the floor. So, I think Greg Popovich trusted Tony Parker right away to handle those responsibilities. And then you go all the way back to remember when the Spurs they were thinking about and flirting with going to get Jason Kidd, and Tony Parker, he was hot. He was like, look, haven't I done enough? And I think that kind of sparked him to take it even another level. And we've seen over the years what he's meant to this organization. I mean, listen, one time this guy led the league in points in the paint as a point guard. That's kind of unheard of. So it was very, very special. And again, I'm looking forward to when he's finally introduced and the reaction that he's going to get. It's going to be really, really special. And I think you'll really feel that love from the Spurs fans, the Spurs themselves, onto Tony Parker, a man who's helped them capture 4 of those 5 championships up there.
Because Tony himself has admitted that he didn't think he would finish his career elsewhere. Do you think that perhaps this could be the night that not only Tony but the franchise and the fans have needed somewhat to celebrate what's behind and fully embrace what's ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they wanted it to come down to this. I think in the back of everybody's minds, Tony would have loved to have finished his career here, and the Spurs would have loved for him to finish here as well. But, when you have young talent and a guy like DeJounte Murray, you can't hold him back. And it was so interesting. The way Tony Parker came is almost like the way he left. He got put to that starting lineup. Antonio Daniels was taken off the court, and Tony was given that job. And now you got a young cat coming up in DeJounte Murray who said he was too hungry. You saw it. You see the skill level here. He's ready, and then it was just time. And even Tony Parker and Greg Popovich said, listen, this was Tony's idea. He came and said, listen, this is his time now. Go ahead and give him that opportunity. But in the back of his mind, Tony still feels like he wants to play. And in talking to Nick Batum this morning, he's like, listen, he's having fun. He needed this change of scenery, just kind of 1 year to just teach everything that Greg Popovich and the Spurs taught him and pass it on to these young guys here in Charlotte. So, again, you'll see it all come full circle tonight. You'll see that love, that emotion, that appreciation, most of all, of how the Spurs really appreciated everything that Tony Parker gave. Again, 3 of those 5 championships, it does not happen without Tony Parker on that floor.
Well, excellent work as always. You guys can find Jabari's coverage in The Athletic and on social media at Jabari J. Young. Thanks for taking the time, friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tony himself said that he knew where the visitors' locker room was, but that it was different to walk in that direction. Do you remember feeling that way, ever finding your way around for the first time to anywhere else in the arena?
Absolutely. First time I went into the visitors' locker room was when I was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I walked in there.
Wow!
I didn't even know where I was.
Never.
Wow. Never went down there once. Never. I don't think I ever crossed a certain point in the hallway. They were just farther down the hallway. I never went there. I stopped at our place and won the court. I walked in. I looked around. And I went like, "This is where we put the opposing team." It was
not
a rat
nice.
hole. It was really terrible. I was like,
it was. Yes, it was.
It really was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I was shocked. I was like, really?
And very cold, but very warm for this playoff time.
And I chuckled. That was the first time I'd ever been in there. So, so you find out new things about the place you worked for 13 years.
That's funny. Do you agree that there's been a love-hate relationship with Tony over the years? Because you knew that Timmy was so beloved by all, not only the franchise, but the fans as well. Same thing with Manu. But it's interesting to hear the differing perspective that perhaps that wasn't always the relationship with Tony and his fans.
Well, let's not forget that besides Tim and Manu, there was a guy named David Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that
he was pretty good also.
Yeah, so
they loved him.
David's there, who they love, and then Tim comes in, who they love, and Manu, is a favorite. So, and Tony comes in as a 19-year-old. So, you got to wait your turn. You're that next child in line. You got to wait your turn.
Yeah, and I think what happened too is that, Tim was always just rock steady, even his rookie year, didn't make mistakes and stuff. I think Pop's kind of got with Manu, like, the more I coach him, the worse he gets. I'm just going to have to just let Manu go.
Yeah.
And he's going to do some stuff that's going to, just make me just want to jump up and down, but I'm just not going to do it. So Tony got the brunt of all of that stuff. So Tony was kind of, Pop's got on Tony a lot. Like, watching him and just watching that whole dynamic. There were a lot of times Tony caught the brunt of Pop's anger because he didn't say much to Timmy and Manu. But I think through all that, he became a better player. As we talked about, he made mistakes early. And his game was kind of ratty. His jump shot wasn't there, and he took some shots and did some stuff. But slowly but surely, Pops just kind of molded him and just kept him going in this direction, but taking his game from here to here. Talked about him being leading the league in paint points. That guy could finish around the rack. He was an amazing finisher of the basketball for a little guy in there. But yeah, so I think, I think sometimes his road is a little bit more rugged than Tim and Manu's. And probably he had more, I can tell you what, he had more headbutting with Pops than any of those guys did.
And what's funny is I was in San Antonio just a couple of weeks ago, and Coach Pop told us prior to our TNT broadcast that Tony had called him recently and said that he was way too easy on the young guys. He's like, that's not how you treated me. What's happened here? Softened up a little bit.
Remember, early on when he first came in to join that team, Pop molded him into running the show and get the ball to these other people. Because on that same team, besides David Robinson, Tim Duncan, you still had Smitty, was on that team back then. Steven Jackson was on the team back then. Manu was on the team. So it wasn't Tony's job to, I have to add my points to this group. This group's going to get points.
Right.
You get the ball to them at the right time. You run the show, you run the break, and let's start to develop you as a defensive player at the other end of the floor. And then as guys moved on, and then it became a little more scoring burden on Tony, and that's what happened.
Well, Game Time continues after the break with Steph Curry's 11 from behind the arc on Sunday, and who our crew would trust to take one shot with the game on the line. Don't go away.